Welcome, welcome. My name is Jonathan Grubb. I'm with United Restorers, and I'm also a proud member of the Alliance of Independent Restorers. I'm joined today with Dan York, the CEO of Stellar eMarketing, an SEO company that focuses on the restoration space. I've titled this video Snake Oil and Charlatans for a reason. It's to get you to click and watch it. No, this tends to be, it's me being a little bit negative. But here's the overall theme that I want to convey. I hate seeing companies fall for tricks. I hate seeing companies fall for subpar service. And so I'm not an expert on SEO. Our expertise is pay-per-click. You guys know that. And so I've had these conversations with Dan many times over the years, and his company has proven themselves with my clients and other folks I've referred to Stellar eMarketing. They've proved themselves again and again and again. So I would imagine he's the subject matter expert on SEO. So Dan, first, thanks for responding to my text a few hours ago to jump on a video with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
No, probably not anytime. I know you got a full day, so
pretty close.
It won't take very long.
Yeah,
pretty close to anytime. That's fair. So, like I'm five. Tell me what SEO is. Let's get the definition out, and then I want to ask you some questions about different techniques that companies use to, finger quotes, achieve good SEO.
Yeah. So just defining it as simply as you can. I mean, SEO is search engine optimization, so we got to break down those words. Optimization, of course, is to make something better for, right? And then a search engine is literally an engine for search. Like it's something built for you to search on. And you've got Google, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, Bing, if you're old school, like I am, you had Alta Vista and Dogpile, right? Like old school.
Ask Jeeves and yeah.
Yeah, Ask Jeeves, exactly. So a search engine is literally, SEO, search engine optimization, is optimizing your website for a search engine. I mean, that's as simple as it can be put. So if we were going to go like baby steps to this, it would be, how to appear at the top of the search results. That's as simple as SEO is. How to appear at the top of the search results in the what we call organic or natural results, which are all of the results that are not advertisements, which, by the way, includes Google Maps, Google Local. Okay. So those, even in Google Local, there's a little ad for people at the top of Google Maps, Google Local, and then you have the quote unquote natural or organic listings. So those two areas would comprise the result or the product of SEO. Now, the only other thing I'll add is it sort of depends on your industry a little bit. We're not talking to information providers per se. We're talking to local service providers, water damage restoration companies and mold remediation contractors, et cetera. So it's pretty simple. If you're not in the top 3 positions of Google's page 1, and you're really not in the top 3 positions of Google Maps, Google Local, the calls really don't come in. If they do, you're kind of lucky. And that's for any particular area that you're at. And that's really as simple as SEO is. You can complicate it if you want. And as a technology and a skill, it can get pretty complicated, which is why there's specialists like us. But in terms of what it is as a product, it's easy. It's easy to think about.
So I read, I want to say it was on WordStream, that 75% of all clicks happen to one of those 1 through 3 positioned results, right? Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, and I think it's even more dramatic than that. So yes, but we had one client who dominated number 1 for a long time, and then there was a hiccup on the site due to some site updates, and he went just down to number 3, and his calls, I don't want to say they disintegrated, but they reduced by probably 80% by not having that top position and just going down to position 3. So he was still getting calls, but it was massive. Yeah.
Okay. So how does Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo, I use that on my phone. How do they determine who shows up on page 1 and in those positions 1, 2, and 3?
By payoffs. I mean, they're obviously mob owns, and so it's by payoff. You guys all know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
How do they show it? I mean, there's two different major areas that you're going to look at. There's what we would call on-site factors and off-site factors. Okay. So on-site factor literally means on your website. There's certain things on your website that have to be designed and created in the proper way so that Google can read it. And then there's off-site factors, which is things that are not on your website and they're on other websites that would then point to your website essentially. Okay, or at least in some way communicate with your website. And those two things together will sort of create popularity. And that's how you want to view this with Google. I don't know what it looks like I'm looking at. I'm looking at you, John. It kind of looks like I just realized it looks like I'm looking into the corner of the screen. So hopefully you're fine with that. But
I'm not looking at you. You're over here. I'm looking at my camera. So yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
that's fine.
I'm looking at you. So it's like I'm looking at somebody's ear the whole time I'm talking to their face or something.
Doesn't make me uncomfortable at all.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so
But
outside sources.
Yeah, so we've got on and off site factors. Okay, so if these things are programmed correctly, and there's rules to it. And some of them are, secret algorithms, which is just a sequence of events that Google programs out for a site's popularity. Then you essentially show up higher than others. And I always use examples like, you're a new kid in school. Well, you don't know anybody yet. So you meet one kid, and then you meet 2 kids, and then you meet 10 kids, and then you join the football team or band or something like that. And before you know it, you're pretty popular, and you've gone up in the rankings. And that's really how Google does work.
That makes sense. That's a good way of explaining it. So there are a couple of different ways to get your website onto the first page into the those one of those 3 results. Let's talk about that. How did we used to do it? How are we doing it now? And what are the current trends that you're seeing in how really what's the service you see companies selling right now? You can start with the first question.
That's a loaded question. So of
course,
are you talking about what used to work? Are we talking about what used to work here?
Yeah, let's start. So I was building websites in high school, which was the mid to late 90s. I don't think SEO was even on my radar back then. But in 2006, 2007, that's when I discovered WordPress. I was building an HTML and then .NET Nuke, and then discovered WordPress, and that's when SEO became .NET Nuke. Yeah, that's an old one. That's when SEO kind of I understood sort of what it was, but what I was seeing on sites that I was visiting, it was very spammy looking. Those were the days of Flash and then like linking 1,000 keywords at the bottom of the page and things like that. So what used to work, and then how has the optimization process changed over the past couple of years?
Over the last, let's put it this way. I was doing web stuff back as early as probably 2003 or 2004, which we thought it was pretty advanced back then, but you look back at those time periods and it was just not advanced. And like you said, we were building websites in Microsoft Front Page back then. And there was no content management systems like WordPress or anything like that. So I don't know how technical we want to get in this meeting, but what ended up happening, I got into the SEO space by accident because we were doing web design with a company I was with at the time. And every time you launched a site, everybody's like, well, now what? So we're like, okay, I guess we better figure this out. So that kind of was our foray into SEO. SEO was hilarious back then, though. Google's results page was super, super simple. There wasn't ads all over the place. There wasn't maps all over the place. There wasn't 30 things you were looking at. There was about 10. And so all you did was there was a little code spot in the back end of the website that you wouldn't see as somebody looking at the website that was called a meta keywords box. And you could literally put any keyword that you wanted in there. Some people would put 100 keywords in there. And you could rank for it, whether it was relevant or not. So if you had a Halloween costume website and you wanted to rank for, coffee tables or something like that, you'd put that in the keywords and it would actually work. I mean, we're talking super old school stuff here. Well, Google clearly got wise to that very early on. And, around that time, kind of mid 2000s, Flash websites started to come out where they had all the animations. You had to wait 30 seconds to get into somebody's site while they played all this music and did all this stuff for you. Remember that? Hated that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad those days are over with. But SEO and Google hated Flash sites. So everybody was moving to Flash sites and it would just make them disappear for the search engines. So then everybody migrated back onto regular websites and WordPress started to come out. And there was a few other competitors to WordPress too. But so that's when the techniques actually started to get pretty interesting. And, one of the main factors that had come out, I want to say this was about 2007 or 2008, that had to do with high rankings at that time, was backlinking. Okay, so backlinking is essentially taking a link from somebody's website and pointing it to your website. It's not really complicated. That's really all. And there's all sorts of different ways that you can do it. I mean, I could list off 20 different backlinking techniques, but essentially they all result in the same thing: a website pointed to you. Okay.
And so this is a way of sort of artificially making the site more popular because you've got other websites talking about it. Okay.
And then back then there was actually one more step in these links, and it was what we would call a link text, which all that means is the words that are in the link itself. So if you're ever on a website and it says click here and the word click here is highlighted as the link, well, click here is the link text. Okay, so back then you would find out that whatever the text in the link was would just destroy SEO results. I mean, it would just be amazing. So if you had like a link that said, water damage Phoenix, right? Or mold testing in Washington, D.C., and that was the link text and it pointed to your site, your rankings killed. And that went on for some years. And link text is still relatively, I don't know how really important it is now, because I've seen a lot of contrary stuff over the last few years that shows it doesn't really even matter. Links matter, but link text, you got to think like Google. Once the SEO community, which is massive worldwide, figures out a technique, they just capitalize on it and exploit the shit out of it until it's just not useful anymore. And then Google gets rid of it. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, really, they then penalize what would be done. So like, for example, there was one website.
Google, the ultimate nanny.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because everybody can get critical of Google, and I could too if I wanted to, but really they're trying to do the right thing for you, in your websites. They really are in some capacities. Maybe they get a little crowded with their advertisements and stuff like that, but they're a publicly traded company with shareholders they got to make happy. That's how it goes. With regard to SEO though, they do have to provide a good product, because if they don't, guess what? You go to Yahoo or you go to Bing or DuckDuckGo. So if they don't give you good search results, you're gone. And they know that. And that's where all their money comes from, you even being there in the first place. But anyway, so back to this backlinking thing. Around I want to say this was 2010, maybe 2011 now, they started penalizing all these backlinks. So I had one company that had 50,000 backlinks pointed to their homepage that all said the same thing. And I forget what it was, but let's just say it was like water damage Denver or something like that. All pointed to their homepage, and their website got nuked. Okay. And during this particular change, which I'm not going to get too technical about, basically, it impacted, I think it was about 11% of Google's entire index. That's their whole card catalog of every website, every page. 11% of this index was sort of nuked. Okay.
And by nuked, I use that term to describe this, what I think you're describing. That means you just no longer show up on search results, or if you show up, you're page 14, right? That's
right. Yeah, you're out of commission. You're
Badlands,
you're not showing up Google. Anywhere that. Yeah, exactly. The Badlands. Yeah, you're out of luck. Now, and there wasn't really many options to correct that. And then Google came up with ways to allow people like us to correct that, because sometimes you can't help it. And then on top of it, to make things worse, especially towards like 2014 through 2016, we started seeing what we'd call negative SEO attacks.
Okay.
And that's where a competitor would do things like some dirty stuff, John. I mean, like you could take a bunch of links to a porn site or something and drive it to your site. You could use the link text like porno or whatever and drive it to a website. And Google's like, yeah, that ain't happening. And they just nuke the page. So we'd see negative SEO attacks from competitors they'd hire some SEO guy from the Philippines or Bangladesh to do it. So it's kind of outside of the States, and then nuke somebody's site. But anyway, so Google was figuring all this stuff out and gave us all options to correct that, right? And right now we're at about 2010, 2012, right in this window here. And then from there, it started to get into major changes. They would do major shifts. The next major problem they ran into was what they called duplicate content, okay? And everybody thinks they know what that means, and they don't. It's the funniest thing. We used to test out what duplicate content actually was, and I could change back when this was working, or back when they made that change, I could change 2 to 3% of a website page and have it outrank just about anybody else, because I found out exactly what the specific things on what was duplicate content. It's not just words on a page. And but when you say things like duplicate content, it sounds easy enough to understand, but we are in a very pretty technical space. And so these words that mean something out there, they mean different things in here. So that was a big change too. And that really wiped people out, because what you would have is, again, these backlinking guys, these SEO guys would take an article and then they'd publish it on 25 different websites with these backlinks on the article. So you'd have 25 of the same article with the backlinks pointing to the site, and it worked. It did work back then. But then when you'd go search for, let's say you wanted some data, you do a Google search. You go, what are the 5 different kinds of mold, or what are what are the different types of black mold? Let's say you do that search. Well, what happened is, thanks to the SEO community, you'd have all of Google's page 1 with the same article. So the searcher was looking essentially
exactly what I wanted to see. Yes.
Yeah, they're like, that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see 10 of the same article. So Google wiped that out with one swift punch. And that literally deleted about 10%. It was maybe even slightly more, like 11%. That deleted like 10% of their whole search index when they did that, which is massive. That's like deleting 10% of the library's card catalog. Billions, crazy amounts of data. Just disappeared. But that's how much the SEO community was taking advantage of a good thing.
And so that was true duplicate content.
That was true duplicate content.
Okay. So
because some people are like, oh, well, if I build landing pages or if I have separate pages for separate cities, that's duplicate content. It's like, well, no, it isn't. Otherwise, your website would have been penalized, because Google is definitely penalizing duplicate content, and they have been for years and years, right? Yeah. And if it is duplicate content, well, then how does Better Business Bureau and Angie's List and Home Advisor and all these other guys get away with doing literally millions of landing pages?
Exactly. So this is a good segue into what we're seeing now from a trend perspective. So I know Stellar focuses on local SEO, very city and service specific content. So then the argument would be, all right, if my service area covers, let's say 25 cities, and I, provide 4 services. Okay. So now we're up to 100 potential pages. Why couldn't I then just take 100 pages, change a word here and there, and dump it into my site? And maybe I want to focus on these 25 cities and these separate services, but let's just cover the whole state. And so now we're going to dump 1,500 pages into my site.
Oh, well,
why can't I do that?
Well, okay. So, I mean, let's just focus on the last thing you said, because I could say a different answer to what you started off saying, but let's just take that last thing you said, because that's actually relatively damaging. If you dump, let's put it this way, let's say you have a website and you're a plumber or a water damage restoration guy, and a typical water damage restoration guy or mold remediation contracting company will have a website with maybe 30 pages at a busy clip. And if they're huge, then maybe like 50, 70, we're not, if they got,
some have 5.
Some of them have 5, right? But now you got to realize that Google has, you know, you're dealing with sort of their brain. They have this kind of brain that's watching like, oh yeah, well, this 5-page website adds 2 blog posts per year. So your website pages are growing by 2 per year.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a history there. So if
Right.
all of a sudden you show up with 1,500 pages or 2,000 pages, or in one case, we saw 30,000 pages once. It was upwards of 30, it's probably like 31,000. Somebody bought some software, this was about 4 years ago, some SEO software that was going to build out landing pages, and it would do cities and keywords. So it would do different cities for every keyword. So you had one keyword, one city, and then it would just go and shoot them all out. And this was a client that we had. I mean, this is probably 2015, John.
It's like that Michael Keaton movie. Was it Duplicity, where he starts cloning himself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they came out with this, and I had one of my clients go over there, and all of a sudden, and we wanted to see what he did on the software, and they created something like 30,000 pages, and then he got nuked, totally disappeared. All of his rankings gone, and all that happened there was that Google goes, oh wow, this guy's building 2 pages per year, and all of a sudden he has 30,000. Spam, boom, gone, right? And what that threshold is, we'll never really find out what the threshold is, but you know, I've been doing, and just in disaster services, we've been in disaster services for 10 years now, maybe 11 now, and specified in this, and we've never gotten into that threshold. And we build out sites relatively stably, and we've never clicked that Google threshold where we've gotten somebody hit. So you want to be careful of how quickly you build out a website. You have a history, and that history will move into your future. I was hired to consult for a competitor to Angie's List. And Angie's List came into the market, and at the time they'd raised, I think it was about $400 million from Goldman Sachs to build out their whole lead gen thing, which they were eventually, I think, bought by Home Advisor 2 years ago for like 500 million or something, like huge dollars. And anyway, so these guys were 30 or 40 years older than Angie's List, and were just getting clobbered. And they didn't exist all over the markets. And so I was sitting there looking at very specific things. And one of the things I was looking at was their page dumps. Well, my client at the time was only dumping about 10,000 pages into their site a year, and they would do it all in one day, right? So 10,000 pages in a day, once a year. And Angie's List was literally dumping hundreds of thousands of pages a month. I mean, it was just crazy. And every day, hundreds and thousands of pages every day.
Goodness.
Yeah, so you can see, and then Angie's List, the rankings aren't so great now. I mean, they're not terrible, but they used to have better rankings years ago. And they did this kind of firewall thing that kind of screwed up all their rankings, but they used to have better rankings back in the day. And that was one of the things that I found. It was a huge difference between these guys, among many others, but it was a critical one. It's just, what's the expectant rate of growth of a website? It's important. Yeah.
So I think we've covered mega dumps of pages into sites, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, just kind of keeping with your theme, John. I mean, I guess we're looking at, there's right and wrong ways to do things, and really, if you want to start with, as you put it, in the title, the sellers of snake oil. There's 2 viewpoints in SEO that are really simple. One is do it the slow and steady way that Google wants you to do it. And the other one is try to skate the system. Okay. Now, SEO, unfortunately, is kind of like the construction industry. For every 25 SEO companies you meet, you're going to meet one that's good. But there are good ones out there, and I know them. I know some very good SEO companies out there. But now there's always going to be the guys that skate the system too. And the trick is to know the difference. If it sounds too good to be true, even if it works right now, it will be too good to be true. And I promise that. I've seen so many companies come and go over the last 17, 18 years doing some trick, some this, some that, and they always end up getting their clients whacked.
Yeah, and when you look at the history, it seems like SEO has almost bred a culture of, let's, we found an exploit, let's hit it with everything we've got. And then Google comes in, closes that door, and then we move on to the next exploit.
Yeah, but the problem is when Google comes in and closes the door to that exploit is there's companies, remember there's the two camps of companies, the guy who build it slow and steady and the guys who are going to exploit the system. The guys that really want to exploit the system, they end up getting their customer sites like sometimes banned and sometimes booted off and
blacklisted.
And that's expensive because let's just take you know, you're going to spend for any SEO program, I mean, you're going to spend for cheap companies maybe $5,000 or $6,000 a year, and on up to sometimes, you know, $100,000 a year for big local SEO companies and or local SEO projects. So you got a pretty big spend of budget there, and to spend all that and to have it disappear is, to me, criminal. SEO is supposed to be a long-term marketing campaign. It's supposed to have long-lasting results. It's like building a brand and an image. It's supposed to keep going. So to get it trashed by that other camp, there's, you know, like I said, it's simple to tell the difference too. If it sounds too good to be true, at some point it will be, even if it works right now. Google, this is the last thing I'll say about it, John, is I love this, is I love when people think that they're going to outsmart Google's engineers. I can't tell you the amount of times. It's probably about every year and a half. You and I both have probably heard people come into this space and be like, I've got the best, new, brightest thing, and I've tricked Google. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
The shiny object syndrome. Yeah. It's, I would venture to say Google's R&D department, and engineering department, I would imagine the budget is larger than, you know, somebody sitting in their garage, coming up with the next whiz bang. On that topic.
Yeah, I mean, they're the smartest engineers on the planet. I mean, these guys are literally the smartest search engineers on the planet. There's nobody that's going to be outsmarting these guys. It just is amazing to me that somebody in their garage is going to be like, I figured it out. I'm like, yeah, no, you didn't. You really didn't.
On the topic, SEO software there's a lot of buzz around that right now, and especially in our industry. Not because it's new, because it's not, but our industry typically will catch on to things a year or two after the fact. But I see a lot about this. What I've looked at specifically is content generators and content rotators. But what's the term for that?
I don't know. Content generators and rotators is fine with me. Just spinning, content spinning, whatever you want to call it.
Terribly unscientific definitions I've come up with. So when I first looked at it, you know, Google has a terms of service, and as an advertiser on their ad platform, I've got to abide by their terms of service. And for me, that literally means how I can write ads, the words I can use, how I capitalize, how I use punctuation and spelling. But there's certain things I can't advertise for. I can't advertise for firearms or, you know, rehab clinics. That was banned for a long time. It's come back a little bit. Right now, I can't advertise for COVID-19, coronavirus, or even disinfection. So that's,
in the old days, you used to be able to not put out ads on pay-per-click ads. You used to be able to not advertise for other people's brands, and you can do that all day and night now. Behind the scenes.
It can be a little murky, but if you go and read the link, I mean, most of their terms of service are a little murky. But getting back to my point, when I understood that certain plugins were using a randomizer, that's the word I was looking for, content generators and content randomizers, I went and looked, and sure enough, it violates Google's terms of service, and it's very clearly spelled out.
Let's just put it this way. I mean, we got two subjects here. We got software and this randomizing or this content spinning or randomizing or rotating, whatever word you want to use. I mean, you know, we're looking for efficiency in always, right? So software in and of itself for SEO is actually not a bad thing. Okay, because if somebody's going to do, like, there's plenty of companies that want to do SEO on their own and want to get into it, and they'll buy SEO software. Well,
sure, they'll get a plug-in.
And it's fine. I mean, SEO software is not necessarily a bad thing. Software is not a bad thing, but it's only going to be as good as the intellect of the person using it, right? So it all comes back down to strategy. If your strategy isn't good and you're using software, well, then the software is going to be bad. If your strategy is good and you're using software, then it's going to be good. Now, that being said, you can create software for speed that would violate things that Google wouldn't want you to do. Like, for example, Google wants to provide good search results for us. True?
True. Yeah.
True. Okay, so if we had robots writing articles, would Google want that?
No.
No. If we had 20 pages on a website that were automatically changing the words on the page and the paragraphs on the page automatically by bots, you think Google would want that?
It doesn't seem like they would.
No, they don't. And that's why those things always get shit canned. I mean, I've seen these things come up literally every 2 years for the last 10 years. I mean, the first one I saw was probably 2010 or 2011 when blogging started to take off and all this blog writing software started coming out. I mean, and they would get hacked as fast as some of these would get pretty big and then they'd get hacked. But, you know, and you just got to think about things like this logically. You know, it's against Google's terms of service to use those things anyway. So at some point, if it ever gets hit, it's gonna knock your site down. If they find the software in your site, it's gonna knock your site down. So that's where I just want to make a clear delineation between software. Software is fine if you want to create software. I mean, we use software in WordPress sites behind the scenes all the time because it makes things easier. We don't have to go into servers. It makes things faster and more efficient. And we're all about efficiency. But it's the strategy plus the software that matters. And you just want to make sure that if you're ever doing anything to violate Google's terms of service, no matter what it is, I can tell you 10 other SEO techniques that people still do that are amazing that they still do them. But if you get caught doing any one of them, they just wipe your site out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I totally agree with the software piece of it. If the software is being used to organize and simplify,
sure,
you know, the ranking of a specific page, makes perfect sense. If the software is being used to create content in large amounts, where we're talking hundreds, thousands of pages, that's where we're going to get into problems. And I like that you said we need to look at it logically.
Just look at it from Google's perspective and you'll be fine.
Yeah. And when something is too good to be true, that's when I'd call it snake oil. So I'm glad you tied us back into the title. So 2 weeks ago or so, I did a video. It was 2 weeks ago. And I was talking about pay-per-click audits. And over the years, we've audited a lot of Google ad accounts. And within a few minutes, I can start seeing all the holes in the account. And that's been helpful for a number of reasons. But I put out a video on basically 5 things that you have to look at in your account if you as the owner operator are managing that account, or if you're having a third party. Things that you have to look at to make sure they're set up right, and then 4 ways to qualify those changes. Do you have any suggestions if someone's trying to do their own SEO, or if they've hired someone? Is there sort of a best practices if you were doing an audit of a site? What are some things that a user or a client could be looking for to determine whether or not they're getting good service?
Well, it's in our business, it's kind of interesting question because it comes down to, are you getting phone calls or not? You know, like when you're dealing, nobody cares about anything else but phone calls and business. Are you getting the business or aren't you? I mean, that's, if we really want to get down to, you know, talking turkey, that's it. So I could tell somebody like, look, well, let's just say that there's an SEO company who's going to get somebody 250 page number one rankings, but they got no phone calls. So the customer is going to come away from that thinking that SEO doesn't work and it's a scam, except it's not true because SEO does work. I mean, I've driven, you know, literally a few $100 million of business into water damage restoration companies alone, right? So we know it works. It's the strategy that's bad. So as an example, we used to do pay-per-click in our agency years and years ago, John. A little bit before I met you, as a matter of fact. And I had a client in Chicago, a fairly sizable client, and they were spending about $50,000 a month on their ad budget for Google pay-per-click ads. And so he's like, I need your help. We've spent $150,000 over 3 months and it's just not working. I go, well, who's managing the ads? And he goes, my IT guy. My IT guy said he's really good at pay-per-click. I go, of course. I go, okay. So you gave your IT guy $50,000 a month budget to manage? And he goes, yeah. I go, how many calls did you get? He goes, 3. And I go, how many of those turned into jobs and how much was the job? And he goes, none of them turned into jobs. So they literally burned $150,000. So So then he freaks out because I took over, and again, I'm not talking about SEO at this point. I'm talking about pay-per-click. I'm just giving, this is a good related example of what it's like in our SEO world. Is so we took over the account, and I reduced his budget down to $10,000 a month. Okay. His website traffic, the IT guy was so proud of the fact that he was getting like 1 million hits a month on the website, but I saw like he was advertising for the word weather, John.
Of course.
So people see the word weather and they're like, click. And I'm like, well, it was just ridiculous. So we reduced his budget by $40,000 a month. His web traffic went from like, I swear to God, it was like 900,000 hits a month or something like that. It was crazy. And it went down to maybe 300 hits a week. Mm-hmm. Right. So
sounds about right.
He was freaking out. He's like, what did you guys do? I was like, relax. Your web traffic isn't going to be millions anymore, but it'll be legit. And all of a sudden phone calls start rolling in, and all of a sudden, you know, a $2,000 job, and then there's a $15,000 job, you know what I mean? Then it starts to ramp up. So it's the same thing in SEO, right? I could show somebody 100 page one, number one rankings, but if it ain't producing phone calls, they're like, yeah, this shit don't work. And it's like, it's just the strategy. So, and of course I've been in this space so long now, we know every area, every corner, every pocket. So we know what to go in, just like you do with pay-per-click. But we get a lot of new SEO companies coming into this space every year, which is fine. And the concept is they know that this space is fairly economy proof, and they'll bring in their other SEO strategies that they've been using for whatever, protein drinks, or just even working for electricians or something like that. And there's little nuances that you'd have to really know to produce the right results. If you're going to be marketing a mail service or a courier service, or the difference between an emergency service or disasters, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a whole different strategy, and that's
right.
When I look at competitors outside of our industry, the number one thing, it's not that they're bad companies, they just don't know this business. And you almost have to apply an opposite strategy to emergency services versus traditional, 3-4 week long buying cycle type services. Are you ringing?
Yeah, my phone's ringing, and I'm stuck to headphones, so it's going to just have to ring and get over it.
No
but
problem.
I'd say that just to kind of circle back to your question, what are some things that you could look at that would show that you're working with somebody valuable? Well, a lot of the things are going to be opposite to what you think, kind of like what you just said. Your hits are probably going to go down. Your traffic's probably going to go down because you're taking a volume and getting into a quality. And then you're going to be maneuvering this quality. And sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it can, in SEO, it can take, for a brand new website, it can take 8 months to 12 months to even start generating calls, right? And for a more established website, it could happen in 3 to 6 months. It's hard to say because everybody's done SEO at this point, and some of them have had bad SEO and you have to fix it. But, really, sometimes I can just say it's a gut feeling, John. Does the person sound like they know what they're talking about, or don't they? Are you getting a return on investment, or aren't you? Are you getting phone calls in, or aren't you? Do you want me to show you 250 page 1 through 3 rankings, or do you want me to show you phone calls? What do you want to see here? I had one customer, is a great example of this, probably 3 months ago. He was talking to another SEO company that was like a jack of all trades company. They do social media marketing and web design and everything. And he was talking about how many backlinks that he's going to give this customer of mine, right? And so the customer's like, well, how many backlinks did you guys get us last week? And I was like, I don't know, probably none. He's like, well, these guys are going to give me a ton of backlinks. I go, do you have any idea why you need backlinks? Do you have any idea how to build them appropriately? Do you want to just buy backlinks from me? Is that what you think we are, is a backlink service? You know what I mean? And so that's the tough thing that I understand from the customer's viewpoint, John, is that we are in a technical space, but the verbiage is sort of simple, but it's not simple. So it's just enough to be understandable and just enough to be confusing. And it's tough to navigate for customers, for sure.
Well, that saying, I know enough to be dangerous. If someone goes in and looks this stuff up, they might find an article from 4 years ago that worked back then. It doesn't mean it works now. So
4 years is like dinosaur stuff in this business. 4 years is like dinosaur material.
Yeah. Your your field is actually older than my field,
Mm-hmm.
but it's light years. I mean, month to month, quarter to quarter, so much can happen and change.
Yeah.
Like what I work on today in the Google Ad portal looks nothing like it did a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So much has changed. I mean, literally the search results page has changed so much. We did an article a couple of years ago when they removed sidebar ads, and we thought,
Yeah.
it's like heads exploding because sidebar ads were pulled off
I
search
remember
results.
that. I know,
I know we rushed to put out a kind of like a joint statement. So yeah, it was weird, but that
Yeah.
was a major change.
Yeah.
And
Huge.
prior to that release by Google, no one would have thought sidebar ads were going away, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we had for, at that point, like 3 or 4 years. And
Yeah.
when you see it a couple thousand times a year, that's what you get used to. Okay, so you've kind of boiled it down to some real easy concepts. Are you getting phone calls?
Yeah.
Does the company actually sound like they know what they're talking about, and sometimes just a
Mm-hmm.
gut feeling?
Mm-hmm.
I like the phone calls. When I first started, I would inundate my clients with reports.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, packets and packets of reports, and I realized nobody reads them.
Nobody reads them. Yeah.
And really all it comes down to is, how much money did this make you this month?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And really not even so much how many phone calls did you get. That is a good indicator of if maybe your client's dropping the ball on phone calls, but really, how much did you spend? How much did you make? That's what it should boil down to.
Well, I mean, let's get real, John. I mean, in the marketing world, I mean, whether you're on Madison Avenue or you're Leo Burnett in Chicago or something like that, I mean, that's how it is. I mean, you're spending the money to get a return on the money. You put out commercials on TV so that people buy your cereal and your food and all this. We're no different. It's just we have more of a. All of them are actually very technical. Branding is a very technical subject, and public relations is a very technical subject, and it's frustrating for customers because they feel like there should be just somebody that can do all of these things, but they're all so specialized now, and social media marketing has become this hardcore specialty. And I mean, back in the day, John, like I said, I used to do pay-per-click. Our agency used to do pay-per-click, web design, some social media, and SEO. And we even did a little bit of affiliate marketing, but everything got so specialized. We're like, we can't do it all anymore.
Right.
And we were really killing it at SEO, and that was our wheelhouse. So we're like, well, let's just cut everything else and stay in our wheelhouse. And we've done that ever since very successfully.
And I have a very similar story where I did everything but SEO. I didn't want to touch that. Because I knew just enough to be dangerous, and I didn't want to learn a whole new field. But I tried to do everything, and I realized, no, I've really got to specialize. It's for my clients, the sheer quantity of cash they're spending every month really demands my full attention, and I can't be off building websites and doing SEO and doing this and this and this and this and this. So. I agree with you on that. So it's an interesting subject. I still get frustrated when I see these companies come in. You're absolutely right. It's every year or two we see an influx of new products or new services or new companies, and they understand understand enough about the restoration industry to know that these are companies that they need work and they've got some money to spend. And I feel like oftentimes they take advantage of that. But it's the most frustrating thing for me is to see people sort of fall for either antiquated or downright dangerous techniques.
Yeah, I know. You and I have seen this kind of stuff for years. But I'll tell you, here's kind of where we're at as a company and on our sales lenses. We tend to actually not take on clients that have never done SEO before. We don't even take them on. We in the sales process, we'll literally go, oh, you've never done SEO before, which is actually pretty rare these days. Everybody who's in business has somewhat done it. So we were like, okay, well, if you haven't done it, you need to go have some experiences, because we don't want to be their first experience, because they won't know a good company when it's smacks them in the face. Right. So our favorite clients are guys that have gone through 3 and maybe even 5 or 6 SEO companies, because they've been there. And I should separate that out, because there's company hoppers that hop companies every 3 months in SEO, and you're never going to find any good SEO company that'll do anything in 3 months.
No. The try something new crowd. Yes, I'm familiar
Yeah,
with
the try something every 3 months. That it's just never going to work. So, you know, there's an interesting balance between guys like you and I, and you know, other companies that you and I are aware of, and like guys like Alex Donovan, people who are worthy of my referrals, frankly, where they have accountability over their clients. That's the critical thing. Is we live in tough worlds. These are tough businesses. We live in a world where Google flicks a switch on your business and in mine, and everything changes. And then we have to go, they change overnight. We have to go fix it for the client. And so it's just as frustrating for us as it is for the client. Now, there's people who can be accountable for that and retain everybody. And then there's the guys that were just fly by night, get rich quick guys is what I call them. Just get rich quick dudes. They're like, hey, I got this new idea. And then, you know, they go in and sell a bunch of stuff. And then when it drops rapidly for their whole clientele, they just go, okay, well, see you later. And they really disappear. It's not easy money. That's for sure. It is not easy money, but there's, unfortunately, people are going to have to go through it themselves, and they're going to have to go through a few, and it's just like anything else. It's like riding a bike. They'll be like, okay, now I've been down that road. What can you do to prevent it? I mean, good sales presentation, good marketing presentation, but even with a good sales and marketing presentation, nothing beats getting, you know, you gotta fall down on the bike and skin your knee a few times before you start learning how to balance on the bike. And I think it's the same with anybody buying a marketing service, frankly.
I think for this YouTube thumbnail, I'm going to have a picture of me with the end is near sign next to me. I don't mean to be a doomsday crier when it comes to, hey, what you're about to do with your website is going to nuke it. I've told many clients that in the past.
Sometimes it's true though. You have to tell them, because it's your duty to tell them.
I agree.
I mean, you have to tell them sometimes.
But I hate to be that guy. I really do. And I hate to badmouth competition. That's not who we are. We have both run into companies who their entire sales process is badmouthing the competition.
Oh yeah, it's tacky. Yeah. And that's we call it the "your company sucks and we're awesome" sales pitch. I'm not into bad-mouthing companies, and it's funny because I know some people that would say I would badmouth a company, but I don't. I think that's tacky. I think there's plenty of business to go around. I would never badmouth somebody's company. And as a matter of fact, my sales staff know that, and it's in our training materials to never badmouth somebody else's company. That being said, we're hired as subject matter experts, which, being a subject matter expert, if you do not tell the client that what they're about to do is going to potentially damage what they have, right? Then you're going to be unpopular for saying that, but who cares? That's your responsibility as the company. There's a guy I was just dealing with. He's a nice guy, nice enough guy. And he said he wasn't getting phone calls. And we looked at his rankings. This guy, get this, John, he had 127 page one, number one rankings in his area.
Holy cow.
Okay. That's right. So when I see that, I go, impossible. There's no way he's not getting any calls. I don't care what the weather looks like. Okay. And he was up in New England. So I go and call his phone. All right. The phone number that's going to all this stuff. And the phone, it answers, and then it doesn't tell you who to talk to. It just starts listing off people by extension. Okay. So I go, dude, I call him. I go, nobody's calling you because they call your phone number and they don't know what to do. And I go, during the day, he says, well, I pick up all the phones. I go, well, what happens when you're on the job? Well, it goes to the answering service. I go, what time do you check out at night? 5 o'clock. Where does the calls go then? The answering machine. And so this answering machine is basically just listing out for Bob Jones, for Luke, Luke Michaels, you know? And so people were just like, what the hell? And they just click one after the other. We had call tracking on there too. And we were like, why is everybody hanging up on this guy? Right. So, you know, but it's our job to have to tell them that. And he disagreed with me. He said, no, it's not. I go, okay, that's fine. You know, like I'm not gonna, you know, yell at somebody and be like, I'm right and you're wrong. I'm like, okay, well, the proof is in the pudding. Are the calls coming in or aren't they? On our side, our integrity's in, our work was done. And as soon as it goes into your responsibility, which it does, marketing is only marketing. Marketing is not a sales process. right? You and I are not salespeople, we're marketing
Correct.
people.
Yeah.
Once it hits here, it's the customer's responsibility. And they might have horrendous people answering the phone. You'd be surprised. You have some, minimum wage person on the phone that literally could care less about who's calling in. It kills me every time I hear that one.
Or they're sending EMS calls to hourly employees on the weekends.
Yeah.
Totally, if you're making $14 an hour and it's Sunday afternoon and there's a game on, are you
good
gonna
luck.
be super excited about taking that phone call?
Yeah. No. It's and now it's funny because we've gone really off topic, really, John, but we're talking about being good business owners. That's all we're really talking about: running a good, solid business and doing the right things on the front end of your business with your marketing and all the way through the sales process within your business. But that's how related everything that we're talking about is. Everything from finding trustworthy pay-per-click and SEO and social media marketing guys, all the way through the sales process, to the dispatching, to even the referral after the job's done. I mean, all of these things are so intrinsically related.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I've actually learned some stuff from this discussion. I hope the viewers did as well. Dan, where can folks find you and Stellar eMarketing?
Yeah, so you can go to water-damage-marketing.com. You can go to stellar-emarketing.com. That's our corporate website and our water damage restoration marketing website. Also, moldremoval.com is our specific one for mold guys. And phone number is on the website. I don't have it committed to memory because nobody has any phone numbers committed to memory anymore.
No, none. I can remember my phone number from when I was 6, but
so can I. Yeah, that's the only number I remember.
And then you are in the AIR Facebook group along with Shanna, and I think Carrie is as well, and Brittany. So they can.
Our whole team, and then we're in the AIR meetings. Like at least one of us is usually in your weekly AIR meetings, which are always good. These guys should be attending those for good data. Yeah. But easy to find us. Easy.
Okay, awesome, Dan. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. We'll have to do it again soon.
Anytime, John. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.